The Long Way to a New Land. I Can Read book, The Long Way to a New Land by Joan Sandin. Harper Trophy. Contents. 1. The Letter from America, 7. 2. Goodbye to Sweden, page 18. 3. 4 Days to Liverpool, page 30. 4. Storm and Fever, page 44. 5. America at Last, page 54. For Siegfried. 1. The Letter from America. Carl Eric's father shook his fist at the clear blue sky. "Rain!" he cried. "We must have rain!" But the rain did not come. The whole summer passed without a drop of rain. The grass dried up. The cow could not give milk. The crops did not grow. There would be no food for the long winter. Carl Eric and his brother Jonas gathered moss in the forest. They scraped bark from pine trees. Mama mixed it with flour to bake their bread, a hard and bitter bread that made their stomachs ache. Papa tried to buy food. "It is hopeless," he told Mama. "There is nothing to buy. People have left their farms. I saw children begging." One day, a letter came from Uncle Axel in America. "Dear ones, the worst is now over. It is a new life for us here. We have built our house. Our land is good. We will have food for the winter. We think of you there in Sweden. We know how hard it must be. Your farm is small and rocky. You have 3 sons. What future do they have? Come, we will help you. Come to America." Carl Eric saw something on the back of Uncle Axel's letter. "Dear Carl Eric, we have a cow and 12 chickens. We eat wheat bread with butter every day. I have seen an Indian. He was not fierce. I can speak English better than Mama and Papa. Your cousin Anna Steina." "I want wheat bread with butter," said Jonas. "Can we go to America?" That night Carl Eric could not sleep. He was too hungry. He was thinking of Anna Steina's letter. He could hear Mama and Papa talking in their bed. They were still talking when Carl Eric finally fell asleep. The next morning Papa said, "There is no future for us here. We will go to America." 2. Goodbye to Sweden. There were many things to do before they could leave. Mama took all the flour and baked hard flat bread. She washed the quilts. She sewed new ones. Papa made a big trunk with a lock. He sold their small farm and most of their things. He did not get much money, but it was enough to buy their tickets to America. They filled the American trunk with homespun clothes, tools, Papa's rifle, and the Bible. "Can I take Pontus?" asked Jonas. "Yes," said Papa, 1 toy each. Carl Eric rolled up the bedding. He and Jonas packed the cups, bowls, and spoons. Mama put cheese, dried meat, and bread into the big basket. She packed the copper coffee pot. They said goodbye to the people they had known all their lives. Farmer hugged her grandsons. "My poor darlings," she said. Her cheeks were wet with tears. Jonas hopped away from Farmore. He was too excited to hold still. Carl Eric and Jonas took turns riding on the cart. They saw many other people. "Emigrants," said Papa, "just like us." They met at the inns each night. They talked about America. They shared their plans and hopes for a better future in a new land. It took 3 days to reach the seaport of Gothenburg. "Look at those high houses," shouted Jonas. "Look at the sails on the boats," said Carl Eric. Papa sold the cart and horses and bought their tickets. The boats would leave the next day. They waited with the other emigrants until the mail bags lumber, and cattle were loaded. Then they went on board. "Goodbye, Sweden," said Mama. "Goodbye forever," cried Papa. 3. 4 days to Liverpool. It was smelly and dark under the deck. People were packed together on the benches. They were lying on the floor. "Where will we sleep?" asked Mama. Papa found a place for them in the engine room. "It's noisy here," he said, "but it is only for 3 nights." Every morning, Mama waited in line to boil water for their coffee. Then she carefully divided up the cheese and bread. 3 days later, they docked in Hull. "Is this America?" asked Jonas. "No," said Papa, "this is England. They speak English here." But the first people they met spoke Swedish. He was an emigrant agent for the steamship company. He helped them with their baggage and got them safely to the railway station. The train to Liverpool hissed and tooted and click-clacked its way across the English countryside. It passed fields and meadows and rows of brick houses. It went in and out of tunnels and by factories, puffing dirty smoke. That night they slept in beds in an emigrant hotel. The Liverpool port was crowded. The Swedish families huddled together. Carl Eric held on tightly to Papa's hand. All around him he heard the strange languages of other immigrants: English, German, Norwegian, Italian, French. The emigrants boarded the ship. A doctor examined them. He looked for their smallpox vaccines. An old woman and a girl with a rash were sent back to land. Papa found their bunks in the section for families. "Clean straw," said Mama. He stuffed the mattresses and laid out the bedding. When the ship was loaded and ready, the first-class passengers got on. The doctor smiled at them. The stewards helped them to their cabins on deck. Suddenly there was a roar of steam and a clang of bells. The city of Baltimore was on her way to America. 4. Storm and fever. That evening, a steward placed a kettle of fish stew on the long table. The emigrants dipped into the pot with their cups and bowls. They pushed and bumped each other. A man next to Carl Eric dipped into the pot with his dirty hands. Crash! Carl Eric woke up with a start. An oil lamp had fallen on the floor. The ship was rocking. Seawater was everywhere. Trunks slid around on the wet floor. Carl Eric was afraid. He felt Papa next to him in bed. That was better. He could hear people being sick. The smell was terrible. The storm raged for 3 days. The emigrants were locked in. No one could come up on deck. Hundreds of voices prayed and sang and cried. Mama and Jonas could not eat. They became weak and feverish. One night, a hatch was unlocked. A man climbed out. He was carrying a small bundle. The ship's bell rang. "What is it?" asked Carl Eric. "Someone has died," whispered Papa. The next day the sea was calm. The crew unlocked the hatches. They washed down the emigrant deck. Meals were served once more. Papa helped Mama and Jonas to come up on deck. They breathed in the fresh sea air. They felt alive again. A man sat down next to Papa. "It was much worse before the steamships," he said. "It took months then." "I know. I have made this trip many times." "You can speak English?" asked Carl Eric. "English I am talking very good," said the man. He showed Papa a little book called Handbook for the Emigrant. Everything you need to know about The United States and the English language, he said. I wrote it myself. Every day, Papa and Carl Eric read from Handbook for the Immigrant. They memorized the English phrases. What o'clock is it? What country are you of? Now we are arrived. 5. America at last. On the 12th day, someone shouted, "Land!" The emigrants crowded up on the deck to see the New York coast. "This is America!" cried Jonas. "Yes," said Mama, "at last." They packed their things and dragged them up on deck. They tore open their mattresses and threw the straw overboard. A tugboat pulled up out alongside. A health officer stepped aboard. He talked to the captain. "All clear for landing," he said. The crew poked and pushed the emigrants into lines. "Hold hands," Mama shouted. "We must not lose each other." Men in uniforms examined their baggage. A doctor looked into their eyes and down their throats. He thumped on their chests. The line moved slowly. The baby was crying. "I'm hungry," Jonas whispered. "I want wheat bread with butter." "Be quiet," hissed Carl Eric. His own legs ached from standing. He watched the men check Papa's papers. They asked him many questions, first in English, then in Swedish. He saw that Papa was nervous. Finally, it was over. They found a place to sit down. "Don't move from here," said Papa. When he came back, Papa was laughing. "Jonas," he said, "look, wheat with butter." But Jonas was fast asleep. "We have a letter too," said Papa. "Axel and Sarah and Anastina welcome us to America. They will be at the railway station. Everything is arranged." "I have work for the winter." "Oh, Anders," Mama sighed. "Soon we will have a home again." Carl Eric looked around him at the huge room. Long lines of emigrants were still waiting. He heard their many languages. He tasted the fresh wheat bread and sweet butter of his new land. He leaned against Papa's shoulders and whispered, "Now we are arrived." About the author's notes. During the hunger years of 1868 and 1869, more than 50,000 Swedes emigrated to America. Good farmland, jobs, social mobility, religious and political freedom drew them here. Newspapers, pamphlets, and letters from earlier immigrants spread like America fever. Like thousands of Europeans immigrants of the time, the Swedes were still willing to leave everything for the dream of a better life in the land of opportunity. Steamship travel made this trip shorter and safer than before, and there were handbooks with strange-sounding English phrase dictionaries, written by Swedish Yankees to guide their fellow countrymen on their long way to a new land.